Good evening. Welcome to Athens City Council. Tonight is Monday, June 15th, 2015. We are in a regular session of council this evening. We will first begin with a public hearing, the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, Small Cities Second Hearing, which I believe there are comments from our acting Mayor Nisley.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Yes, this is our second hearing. Our first hearing was held on April 6, 2015. We had a legal notice that appeared in the paper on May 31st, and now is our second hearing. And this is for an application that the City of Athens will be submitting to a federally funded program that it's administered by the state of Ohio. And it's the Community Development Block Grant Small Cities Program, affectionately referred to as CDBG. In the past, we have been successful with several repairs and infrastructure improvements to the city. In 2011, it's helped us accomplish the Grosvenor Street slip repair for $97,000. Then in 2012, we spent $85,000 of available grant money for the Columbus Road Lancaster Street project. In 2013, the city worked on the Richland House rehabilitation, and you might know that's the small house that's located next to the Richland Avenue Fire Department, and part of the improvements made to it were not only for energy efficiency, but for universal access to the house, and then made available for as a rental. And then in 2014, the Critical Infrastructure Program project was the Depot Street Lift Station. And that was part of the larger cost was $375,000. What's being proposed this year would be for improvements to Franklin Avenue. Once again, working on the infrastructure, and it would be stormwater infrastructure improvements and select sidewalk and curb replacements on Franklin between Fort Street and Spring Street. And then paving would also include milling and asphalt overlay on Franklin between Carpenter and Madison. So that is the proposal that the city is considering now. So this is our final public hearing before submitting for the grant in June 26th. It is a public hearing, and we've had a sign-in sheet of people present in city council chambers to sign in, but to also offer I'd first see if there are any comments from council members about the project or any other additional information. Then open it up to anybody in the audience if they want to make any comments for it.
Thank you.
Yes.
I would just say that this is, again, another third ward infrastructure improvement project. We know that North Hill is one of the more difficult areas in town in terms of stormwater and runoff. It's part of a hill, and there are open springs, and that particular street has taken a lot of damage over the years, and hopefully if we are able to get this grant, that they will be able to, our engineering department will be able to help improve that particular street.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was just going to add, if I recall correctly, and please remind me if I'm wrong, but I believe during our street tour we also reviewed or looked at some of these projects. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm receiving nods.
Okay, good.
That,
I'm sorry I wasn't there. So
right. And our safety director is not here either, but
okay.
Thank you for reminding me.
But
Just one question. The improvements will cost more than I think we'll probably get from this grant. Are we also actively pursuing other funding to supplement the cost?
I'm not aware of any other additional funds being sought at this point. We could get confirmation, though, of the total project cost. You're correct in that we often have cost share that contributes to it. So I'm sure if there are any things that are performed internally, then we would have the cost share from city staff that would be contributing. But good question on those project detail. And Councilmember Pappy is correct in that stormwater does take an enormous toll, and it does remind me that I believe that there's a public event tomorrow night from 6 to 8 that talks about stormwater in the city, just as an aside, and what the city's been doing to improve stormwater measures. This would certainly include or be counted as one of them.
There's also a fee on the utilities for stormwater.
Correct.
Management.
Something that the city is actively managing.
Thank you.
There aren't any other questions?
I don't believe any more questions from council. Any from the audience? Okay. Acting
I
President.
might offer one other
Mayor.
thing, that this is described and will be in the application as part of the 2010 Census Tract 9730. And what it's addressing is the importance of the city helping taking care of areas that are in low to moderate income areas. And this qualifies as one of the areas for the grant. Very important kind of project to help with our improvement.
Thank you. Thank you, Acting Mayor Nisley. Well, moving on through the agenda, we do have all members present and are establishing a quorum. I will be a voting member of council, even though I'm acting President Pro Tem. Moving on to disposition of minutes, we have a regular session of City Council, which was held June 1st, 2015. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes?
I so move.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to adopt the minutes from the regular session of City Council held June 1st. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The minutes have been adopted. Communications. Any communications from council members? I believe Councilmember Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem. The Commission on Disabilities received an email earlier this week, or yesterday, as a matter of fact, from the general manager of Kroger informing us that on Tuesday, June 25th, the Special Olympics torch is coming through Athens. The Kroger is one of the sponsors for the Special Olympics and for this torch relay. And so just to inform the citizens that the Special Olympics torch will be passing through. I believe it's coming down through East State Street past Kroger. I know there will be an event at Kroger at 8 a.m. So just to raise awareness of a great event that I had coached in the past for many years. So therefore, thank you.
Thank you. That's wonderful news. Other communications from council members. Councilmember Cochran.
Thank you. I have just a special announcement. We have received word from the League of American Bicyclists that the city of Athens has been designated as a bicycle-friendly community. And this is a recent designation coming on the heels of an application that we began the process of back in the fall when Peter Katsas brought to our attention this program that Trek Bicycles sponsors. And we were able to have someone come to Athens from the League of Bicyclists, and several council members participated in a bicycle tour and a meeting at that point to talk about bicycling infrastructure. And so I'm really proud that we were able to secure this designation. It means a lot for the folks who bicycle in this community, and it means that our bicyclists will have more attention and will be able to provide more safe and supportive infrastructure in the future. And we have more to aspire to now. With this bronze designation, we'll be looking to move on up to silver within a few years, perhaps. So congratulations to everyone in Athens who looks out for bicyclists on your way to work, and thanks to all who contributed to this application along the way.
Thank you, Councilmember Cochran. Regarding that, I would like to add a comment as well. I think that is wonderful news. I'd like to thank the mayor's office as well as our Public Works Director, Andy Stone, who was instrumental in helping with the application process immensely and participated as well on the tour. So I think it's really exciting news for our community. Oh, as well as our, thank you, as well as our planner, Paul Logue. I believe we're all donning bicycle helmets and riding around that day, which was, we were fortunate to be blessed with nice weather as well. Any other comments regarding that news? Yes.
If I may, I wouldn't mind commenting. I think this is an amazing honor that the city has been awarded, because if anybody, and I would encourage anybody to go to the League of American Bicyclists and look at to see what constitutes the bronze, the silver, the gold, and the platinum, I believe, is the top. There's only 4 cities in the United States that hold that honor, but we're in good company at the bronze at 250 plus cities that have been bestowed that. The pyramid gets smaller as you can move up that ladder, and I'm sure that Athens can with some of the city improvements that are taking place with more complete streets in the city. So I think this is fantastic, and it gives us that starting bar to go from, and we're going to get higher.
Yeah, I'd agree. Thank you, Councilmember Patterson. Any other communications from council members? Moving on to reports and communications from our other elected officials, and let's begin with Acting Mayor Chris Nisley.
Thank you. 2 items to report on, one of which is coming up this week on June 19th. I believe that's Thursday, the Ohio University Tree Tour. And Ann Bonner from Ohio Department of Natural Resources is going to be leading a group around campus, so that anybody who wants to come, it's from 12 to 1. They meet in front of Cutler Hall. They are asking for people to RSVP to Lorraine McCosker at ohio.edu. You could contact our office if you need to, if you're unable to reach her, but I'm sure the RSVP would be appreciated. And I know that we've been working in the city and the university for inventorying our trees, and that's very important in terms of comprehensive planning and also sustainability. So this is a nice, quite a nice opportunity to learn more about the trees that are on the campus. The second item has to do with city council members who will be joining President McDavis and some of his staff for the annual city council lunch with the president, and that is scheduled for Tuesday, August 18th at noon. So we're making that known to the public. We don't have the final meeting place, but we will announce that as soon as we have that decided on. Looking forward to that. And those are the only items that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I was trying to get this information in the little smartphone. Moving on to reports and communications from other elected officials, I believe we also, Law Director Eliason are present this evening.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I believe that covers all of that with reports and communications. So we are moving on to ordinances for third reading. Ordinance 5815, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of road salt for the Engineering and Public Works Department, and this is introduced by Councilmember Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem. I'd like to make a motion to adopt Ordinance 5815.
Second.
Thank you. Again, this is the state cooperative for purchasing salt in bulk for our roadways, as was mentioned in committee and at first reading.
Not a whole lot to add to
No.
it. Other
than this is a good deal. This is we missed out last year, and this year this will be good to move forward with.
Thank you, Councilmember. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting Ordinance 5815, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ordinance has been adopted. Moving on to Ordinance 5915, an ordinance establishing a fiscal policy for overpayments to employees, and this is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt 5915.
Second.
We've been through committees and it's been read. The idea is that we'll have a policy on the shelf that can be referred to and will meet the various state auditors' requirements for, a well-run city. It's just one of those things that I guess accountants like to see. So we'll have it ready, and let's pass it. So.
Thank you, Councilmember Reisner. Are there comments or questions from council members or the public? Mayor.
And I think this is, this, like the other cost allocation ordinance that we'll be looking at later tonight, sets up a consistent policy for the city and spells it out. So makes it's just good auditing practices. So it's good to have this in place.
Thank you, Mayor Nisley.
Yep.
Any other comments? And from the public, none. So we have a motion and a second for ordinance 5915. All those in favor of adopting the ordinance, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ordinance has been adopted. We are now moving on to ordinances for first reading. So generally, we will not be voting on these ordinances unless there is a request for suspension of the rules. We will generally hear a description of the ordinance from the council member that's presenting it. Ordinance 6015, an ordinance amending the Athens City Code Title 9 General Regulations to add Chapter 9.16 Municipal Cemeteries, and this is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we've discussed the last few committee meetings, this is something that the Ohio Revised Code has instructed us that the city has no other recourse but to accept this cemetery. So we have amended the our code in accordance with it, adding this another chapter about which is specifically dealing with the cemeteries, and it's a whole 10-page ordinance with all the verbiage. It has been gone through by several entities in the city. I mean, I can speak to anything specific, but it's pretty much straightforward.
Thank you, Councilmember Fall. Any questions or comments regarding this ordinance? Anything to the mayor's office? Nothing? Thank you. Moving on to ordinance 6115, an ordinance accepting the donation by the Athens Cemetery Association of all assets associated with the West Union Street Cemetery, again introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. To go along with getting the actual cemetery, we get all the bits and pieces and toys that they have, which is mostly weed eaters and mowers. Also included, we will be getting all the records and any funds that are in their line items that they have. Pretty straightforward again.
Thank you, Councilmember. Questions or comments? Moving on to ordinance 6215, an ordinance granting the renewal of a revocable license to Bruce Brunton, owner 751 West Union Street, to allow the placement of a sign on the city right-of-way. Again, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. This is a straightforward renewal for 10 years of a revocable license for a sign. And it has been okayed by all required departments of the city.
Thank you, Councilmember. Questions or comments from the public? Ordinance 6315, an ordinance granting a revocable license to Cameron Fuller, owner, 97 Columbus Road, to allow replacement of the faceplate of an existing sign located on the city right-of-way, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. This particular one is the sign is covered by a revocable license for the right-of-way. There has been a name change, so they would like to rechange it. It will be for 10 years, too.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Ordinance 6415, an ordinance repealing Ordinance 91-77, vacating the final plat of Valley Acres subdivision, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you, Mr. President. This particular ordinance we discussed last week in fairly detailed discussion. This is the plein air mobile home. Pine Air. I was thinking of Jeff. And so basically what they want to help to clean up the paperwork and not have a million different small lots if they're going to do anything. So it's making it into one large lot again. It's within the 3-mile planning radius. That's why the Planning Commission had acted upon it, and that's why we're acting upon it. If it goes forward in some kind of planning and development phase in the future, it will also be required to go through all normal, everyday procedures, just like any other piece of property that would be in a 3-mile radius. And we have, would you like to say anything? Or?
I'm glad to tell you what's happened. Obviously, you know that we tried to buy it, or we bought it as a trailer park, and we tried real hard to make it work.
Can you introduce yourself for everybody?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Tom Parfit. I'm one of the owners of what we call Pioneer now. We bought that as a trailer park, and we had about 20 tenants down there. And we worked real hard to make it work, but unfortunately the infrastructure wasn't very good down there, and the prior owner didn't keep anything up. So we were getting $25,000 a month water bills from the Plains Water and Sewer. So eventually what we were able to do was work a plan with the trailers that were workable. We were able to help them move to other lots. We had moved some to the Plains, some to Chansey. The other ones, we ended up buying their trailers and giving them enough money that they could kind of relocate, and we recycled all the trailers. We've had the gas company down there. They've taken all their meters out and all their bases. The electric company's got all their meters out. They haven't taken their bases out, but it's being, when I talked to them today, it's scheduled. They just don't have it done yet. We have a lift station there that's with the Plains Water and Sewer, and it's on our property. All the water lines and everything are owned by us, but they're trash. So eventually, whatever needs to be done or whatever is done there, they'll be taken out. So we've addressed all, and that's one of the things Steve wanted us to do before we brought that to the Planning Commission, was make sure that all the utilities and everything were taken care of, and we've done that. So we don't know for sure what we're going to do with it. It's going to be kind of a hard sell because you got to make a right-hand turn out of there. But our main goal was just clean it up. The police were down there more than anybody, most of the time. So it worked out well for everybody. So we just would like to get it to where we had, instead of having 42 individual tax duplicates, we can have one and have one piece of acreage.
So, questions?
The lift station, what kind of condition is that in?
It's owned by us. It will need some work if somebody does something down there. Okay. What it does is it's right on our property, and the lift station has a force main down to almost Eclipse, and then the force feeds down to the Plains Water and Sewer. So that will have to be addressed at some point in time if somebody wants to move in there.
That was my biggest concern last week, was just the infrastructure.
I mean, it's working. It's been working.
Right.
But I would think that probably if somebody wants to do something, we would probably go in there and do some work to it to clean it up, because most of that stuff was not kept up the way it should be.
And in terms of the electric and those kinds of things, when properties are abandoned, they can become problematic in terms of either wires or, I assume.
Well, we've got everything cut off at the road. Okay. So there's no utilities at all past, I think it's River Road there, so everything's been cut off there. The gas company, Bill Allen's a good friend of mine, and they've already been there and cleaned everything up to get everything out of there. Their meters and everything gone, and everything's going with the electric except the bases. So we don't have anything live down there that we're concerned about anybody.
Or wires being stripped out, how people go in. And
yeah, I don't think there's probably much worth taking out that already hasn't been taken out by the previous owners, would be my guess. But we still got a couple trailers down there that we've got a group that comes in and recycles them for us and tries to take everything they can out and recycles them. So that worked out pretty well for us. Okay. We still got some work down there. It looks a lot better than it did, but still ways to go.
True. Thank you.
When do you expect everything to be completed?
Well, when I called the electric company today, he was going to try to call me back today and let me know when that was going to be done. He said it's scheduled, but he didn't have a date. He actually told me he'd call me back if the guy wasn't on vacation this week. I assume he must have been on vacation, so I would assume in the next month. That's my guess. But everything's done but the electric.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Parfit, for presenting this evening and sharing this update with us as well, to acknowledge it as someone who frequently bicycles or runs by the facility. I have.
Yeah, I do understand your.
There's been a heck of a transformation. Yeah. I know there's been a lot of work.
Yeah, we appreciate that, and we had a good group that helped us. And that was another problem, when you have such a nice bicycle path and you're going through there. Some people didn't like going through there at night, so that was another reason for it. So it definitely turned a mess.
Was it the derecho or one of the tornadoes that hit the space as
Yeah,
well?
yeah, it did.
So it's
That was prior to us owning it, but yeah, it did some damage to some, and there's some nice trees down there, but it tore out some of the trees, but most of them have been kind of cleaned up. We've got some shrubbery and stuff that we're going to take out and try to clean it up, and there's still some trash down there, but it's a lot better, as you can see, from what it was.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to say thank you for taking the energy to recycle things and to worry about the people who are living there. And
Yeah, it was a tough
the
decision.
Athens way of
Because
doing
we met with them several times and said, hey, look, can we work together? And we'd have hoses running constantly and everything. But the group we had come in, recycled, did a nice job. And our main goal was to make sure nobody went homeless. So we were able to work out with everybody to work out something where they could move around. And we moved some of the trailers ourselves and moved them in other lots and got them set up. So we didn't have any trouble after that fact. So
But we appreciate that.
No, we
I
do
think,
too. We
I
didn't
think
want
that
we
the
didn't want anything
community
like that. So.
appreciates that. So thank you. Any other?
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fall. Moving on to Ordinance 6515, an ordinance amending the 2015 appropriation ordinance, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend the rules for Ordinance 6515.
Second.
Reasons being this is appropriations and we have some bills due, need to be paid. If you'll allow me a moment, I'll read through the ordinance. It's kind of long. Some things have been added to it. Section 1, the 2015 appropriation ordinance 01/2014 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the following sums: $110,782.69 to general fund other than funds 101.120 TC300 BWC refund, $10,000 to general fund police 101.207 TC300 for joint facility study, and $572.99 to FEMA Fund 588 TC600 for transfer and increase in the total appropriations by said amount. Section 2 of the auditor is hereby authorized to make the following interfund transfer from FEMA Grant 588.580 to General Fund 101, amount $562.99. Water Fund 740.636 to Water Debt Fund 744, $38,720. Section 3 of the 2015 appropriation ordinance is further amended by decreasing Recreation Fund 270 TC 500 by $12,000 and increasing Recreation Fund 270 TC 300 by said amounts for Art West architectural plans, and decreasing General Fund Fire 101.208 TC 200 by $3,500 and increasing General Fund Fire 101.208 TC 500 by same amount to cover purchase of Mark's radio system equipment, and decreasing and increasing the total appropriations by said amounts. That's it in a nutshell. So all this has to be done under suspension. So
Thank you, Councilmember Reisner. We do need to vote on suspension of the rules. We did have a second. Correct. Yes. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. All those in favor of suspension only for Ordinance 6515, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign.
And now, Mr. President, I move to adopt 6515.
Second.
And for all the reasons that has already been stated.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to now adopt Ordinance 6515. Are there any questions or comments from council members regarding the ordinance or the public? All those in favor of adopting Ordinance 6515, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ordinance has been adopted. Thank you, Councilmember Reisner. Moving on to ordinance 6615, an ordinance amending the 2015 staffing levels, part-time and seasonal, and declaring an emergency. Again, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
This, I don't believe, has to be suspended as far as I know.
It does.
It does? Okay, so I'm corrected. It has to be suspended, so I move to suspend
Second.
6615.
Okay. We have, and the reason for suspension?
These hires, it's for hiring, and these people need to get into their position almost immediately.
They're not already.
Anything else from the mayor on that?
No, we did discuss it last week, and this is for allowing part-time seasonal workers as needed, and for the cemetery maintenance. So that's one of our topics that just came up with the passage of the other two ordinances. The other item is, as discussed last week, is to have a data entry operator. It allows for some overlap up to 60 days. It won't necessarily be that long, but does allow up to that long for training of a new officer.
Thank you, Mayor. So, in considering suspension of the rules only, we do have a second. All those in favor of suspension of 6615, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ordinance is now under suspension of the rules.
I move to adopt 6615.
Second.
And again, for the reasons already stated.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council members or the community before we vote on ordinance 6615? Okay, none. We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting ordinance 6615, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. The ordinance has been adopted. Moving on to ordinance 6715, an ordinance establishing a general fund administrative cost allocation policy, and this is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Okay, I don't think this one has to be suspended. Okay. This is another one of the policy ordinances that's been recommended by the auditor for good bookkeeping and record keeping. If you like, I can read the actual policy, or we can move on. I'll leave it up to you.
Perhaps the highlights or a couple of hot points.
Okay. Policy, General Fund Administrative Cost Allocation. The City of Athens General Fund Administrative Cost Allocation Plan provides a formalized way of charging city departments/funds for city administrative services. The departments that supply administrative services to other city departments/funds are Mayor, Human Resources, Safety Service, Auditor, Income Tax, Treasurer, Law Director, Lands, Buildings, and Council. The city's funds that are charged a general fund administrative cost are listed below. These funds are charged an administrative fee because they are subsidized by the general fund. And those funds, the list here is 220 streets, 270 recreation, 271 community center, 740 water, 750 sewer, 760 garbage, 865 internal services. The general fund administrative charges shall be computed annually in October for the next year's budget using the actual expense data from the year prior, the most recent data available. General fund administrative cost allocation charges are calculated by computing an average percentage based on two calculations, total fund expense and total payroll expense. And then it goes on and shows the various algorithms of how this will be developed. The idea is this will be a consistent policy. It's one that can be verified and checked by the state auditor, and they can say, well, that's the way to do it. So, yes, questions?
And didn't we discuss in committee last week that it was part of the state auditor, it was their suggestion that we try to pull this together?
Yes, most of these are being driven by the state auditors. Yes. Member Patterson.
Thank you, Member Reisner. As was discussed in committee, this is also, the formula that's being used is one that's being used by Findlay, Ohio right now, which meets the state auditor's requirements. It streamlines things. It makes it easier. The current formula that's used it creates this unintentional biasing that we see within departments, and so this is going to help iron a lot of that bias out that we see in terms of cost allocations. So, as was mentioned by Deputy Auditor Laura Kreider, this is one way to disentangle the accountancy from the departments.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, and what this does, as you had referred to, it takes the fund expense, also the payroll expense, takes those two, totals them, divides by 2, and averages it. So as you have, and then it's reviewed annually. So as you have variations for payroll, it would be reflected in that the following year when they redo the calculation. So it's something that will be reviewed annually and made accurate depending on the chart, the allocation to the different departments within the city.
I think one other advantage to something like this is also takes out any hint of arbitrariness or just it kind of makes the whole thing just a little more streamlined, I think. So.
Thank you, Member Reisner. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Patterson. Any other comments?
Yep.
Okay, moving on to Ordinance 6815, an ordinance amending Ordinance 01-15, authorizing the purchase of 2 replacement buses for the Athens transit system, introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend 6815. Speaking of disentangling, this ordinance passed, as we are saying, it's I guess a revision of a previous ordinance. Along the way of purchasing our 2 newest buses, we decided to go with what's called a low rider type of bus, meaning that people with disabilities have a much easier access on and off the bus. We won't be purchasing buses that have a lift, which is also costly for maintenance purposes. So with that decision that we made a few months back, there is a different cost situation going on. So I will just review that. The federal share. Do we want to vote to suspend first?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. And again, the reason for suspension?
Is that the bid, the amount needs to be allocated so that the buses can be purchased. The money has to be there before they can sign the document to order the buses.
Thank you, Councilmember Pepper. So we have a motion and second for voting on suspension only. All those in favor of suspending the ordinance, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ordinance is under suspension of the rules.
Okay, I move to adopt 6815.
Second.
Okay, so our federal share is going to cover 61%, 100,000 is what that comes out to of the cost of the purchases. The total cost is 165,000. The city's local share is 39% of the total cost, which is 65,000, which is what the new total is. So last week in committee, we discussed that we needed to increase that by 30,000. So that is what the final amount is 65. And so this authorizes the service safety director to expend up to $165,000 from Transportation Assistance Fund 215 for these purchases. And the 2014 appropriation ordinance is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the sum of $65,000 for the total appropriations. Questions?
I have one question.
Member
Bobby.
Cochran.
Maybe I was asleep last week when this was discussed, but can you explain why the total cost went down but the city's share went up?
Well, that's a good question, and I don't necessarily have the exact answer to that. I don't know, which is not a good answer. Anybody else? Can anybody else? Something happened in the HAPCAP when they redid the funding. The allocations were changed. That's what I know. Member Canterbury?
Yeah, I think when he originally went, he was looking for other partners.
He
From my
was.
understanding, that he was looking for other partners.
He was.
To come up with additional funding that I don't think happened.
That's correct.
That is correct.
And so that's why our share, we decided to move ahead so the buses can be purchased, and that's why our share went up to $65,000. The more specific question that you're asking, Member Cochran, I can't answer, but maybe I have another. Okay, I have an answer. After some, okay.
Thank you, Clerk.
So after some back and forth with the garage and looking at the vehicle options, it looks like they were able to reduce the total amount of the cost, and they've arrived at a lower figure of $165,000 for the purchase of the 2 low-floor buses. And we had already been awarded the $100,000, so that's where the $65,000. Mayor.
And you
nicely.
might remember that from last week's conversation, Service Safety Director Mosley came forward from the administration recommending, as we all would be interested in, having the buses made accessible. So with a higher cost from the city, that increases the percentage of the amount of the total cost that we're sharing. Auditor Hecht did confirm that we have monies available.
She did.
In the street funds, so we're fine with going ahead and paying for this portion of it, this increased portion.
So again, to clarify that, the city is moving forward in order to put the funding, the money in place so that we can purchase, because we cannot do a purchase agreement or whatever until we have the money there. So we are stepping forward with a bit more money than we had initially discussed back in prior months. Member Patterson?
I'd like to stress the point that these are accessible buses, these low-deck buses. So in moving forward and with seeing the ridership going up in the city of Athens when it comes to our transit system, that I think that, you know, the money spent, the increase is well worth the payoff in return, and that it's making, once again, the city more accessible and inclusive to everyone in the city.
Member Canterbury?
And I echo Councilmember Patterson's comment, and also from the maintenance side of it, you're going to have a cheaper, less expensive cost on the maintenance side of it compared to what we have now. Mm-hmm. And that's where your additional savings are going to be. You spend the money now, but you save it in the end.
Right.
Thank you. I too would like to express my support for this ordinance and the purchase of these buses. Knowing that I'm temporarily able-bodied and having used similar buses in the past in other communities, I see the ease of the accessibility to the bus. I believe that our mayor and this body, council, has been very proactive in supporting enhanced transportation needs of the community, and I think it's one of the mayor's legacies that he's most proud of. I think, again, this is a step in the right direction, and I'm very supportive of it. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding us, because we have been very proactive with the public transportation. Yeah. Okay.
Any other comments from council members or the community? Okay, we do have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 6815. All those in favor of adopting the ordinance, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ordinance has been adopted. Ordinance 6915, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to submit an application to the Local Government Innovation Program for a grant to fund a feasibility study for a joint facility to house Athens City, Athens County, and Ohio University Safety Services. This is introduced by Councilmember Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to read this because it's pretty succinct in terms of the two whereases. Whereas the City of Athens Police and Fire Departments the Athens County Sheriff's Office, the Athens County 911 Emergency Communications, and Ohio University Police Department are interested in a joint facility for the purpose of efficiency, collaboration, and shared services. And whereas the Athens City Council recognizes the benefit of combining the operations that will result in significant cost reductions and enhanced quality of services by consolidating our public safety network. This would be a $50,000 feasibility grant that the Service Safety Director would be authorized to apply for through, as was mentioned, the Local Government Innovation Fund, which has a grant mechanism as well as a loan mechanism. This would be through the grant. It is a no match grant, so therefore it would be, the city would not have to match in any way, shape, or form with this particular grant under this mechanism. One of the things that this grant funds, which is interesting and worth noting, I mentioned this last week in committee, but funds for this award goes to projects that promote efficiency, shared services, co-production, and mergers of among local governments. And this particular project pretty much fits that bill in terms of moving forward. Again, this is just a feasibility study to see if something like this could be workable within the city of Athens. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor.
2 points to clarify. So this is for a September deadline, is that right? Because the June 8th deadline has passed.
That's correct.
And then we do have, as we discussed last week, and I think there was general consensus amongst council members, we did, though, just tonight appropriate $10,000 out of city monies for a feasibility study. It would be our own outright monies.
That is correct as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
Okay.
So thank you.
So, but the grant would be $50,000 alone, but I didn't want it
Thank
not
you.
to be known that the additional $10,000 is there from city funds.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments regarding this ordinance from council? Any questions or comments from the public? Moving on to resolution for a second reading. Resolution 7-15. A resolution declaring it necessary to replace existing curb and sidewalks deemed in poor condition on Central Avenue, North Congress Street, and South May Avenue, project number 294, and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Pappy, and again, this is only second reading. Any comments or questions from council or the public on second reading? None? Okay, thank you. Moving on to announcements and other business. We do have a motion to accept the auditor's May 2015 financial reports.
I so move.
Okay, we have
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed, same sign. Okay. Accepted the auditor's financial reports. Any other announcements for committees meeting next week? Requests for committees to meet next week?
Finance and personnel.
I think that there's City and Safety Services one.
Wonderful. Mayor, anything as well with that?
I think the clerk of council knows that we will be requesting a special session next week for a vote potentially on one item
Okay.
with a contract that may be coming up that will require a special session.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Nisley. If there's no other announcements and other business, we'll move on to the part of the agenda in which there's an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services that were not covered on tonight's agenda. And if you so request to speak to us, please kindly sign in at the podium, and you'll be granted approximately 3 or so minutes to speak. Any members of the community wishing to do so? Thank you. We do have a couple few members here this evening. It's wonderful to see you present here.
Hello, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak my mind here. And y'all know what I'm here for. I'm all here about the Number Fest again. And I guess I'm kind of bothered by things in the Athens news about how people are trying to stop students from having a good time. And at the Democracy Day, Jeffrey Reisner here made a comment about how the home rule would not be a good thing for the Number Fest because of the OU students. So I just want to make it clear that those of us who are opposed to the way Numberfest is run because it's not safe, and so our major concern is about safety. It's not about ruining the fun of the OU students. And I personally have I'm not in opposition to the OU students. The number of people that attend Numberfest is way beyond the number of students that attend OU, and the conduct that I see of the students uptown has in no way compares to what happens on the day of Numberfest. So I just want to make it clear that no one is opposing the students. We are mainly concerned about public safety and the reputation of the town that we live in. So our concerns are with the organizer and with the officials responsible for making this a safe and welcoming community. And someone else at the Democracy Day made the statement that after Councilman Reisner's statement that, people wouldn't be voting whether or not they wanted or didn't want Numberfest. The home rule is so that the people in the community have more of a say of how it's run, and things like limiting the size of it, sanitary conditions, etc. So I guess we're all kind of frustrated about where this is going, and we've submitted what we think could be done to the county commissioners, and it was reported in the Athens News. And my frustration, I guess, comes from hearing repeatedly there's nothing we can do. And, I was raised by a mom who always said, can't never did anything. So I'm kind of tired of the can't thing. And the other thing that's kind of frustrating to me is the whole thing of the jurisdiction and the buck stops here kind of thing, because I realize that the event itself takes place outside of the city limits, but the hospital that is blocked is within the city limits. The baseball field where young kids, my friends' kids, had people cussing at them and climbing trees and acting crazy on Numberfest Day, that's within the city limits. The businesses that are being puked on and people are urinating on, and the yards, my yard, my yard's outside the city limits, but my next door neighbor is in the city limits. So that part is a little confusing to me too. So I just want to make sure that people know that we are not against people having fun. We are merely wanting this to become safe. It's been going on for 13 years. The organizer always says he's going to make it better the next year. It keeps getting worse every year. So he's had 13 chances. So how many is he going to get? So thank you.
Thank you, Alice.
Thank you for your comments. Any others in the crowd this evening wishing to comment? It does not appear. Thank you, everyone. We are now at the part of the agenda where we are acknowledging that we will be moving into an executive session this evening, specifically and solely to talk about pending litigation. We will then, after we are done with executive session, we will be formally adjourned after we break from executive session. So, to acknowledge who we want present, we do need to have motions and requests. Who would we like present this evening at our executive session?
I move that we go into executive session for pending litigation with all members of council, acting mayor Nisley, and our law director.
Anyone else we'd like present? No? That appears good. So if we could signify individually.
I vote yes.
Yes,
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did we have a second on?
Second.
Okay. We have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a bunch of seconds.
Now the poll. Yes.
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 Aye.
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 Wonderful. Okay. We will
Yes and aye.
move into executive
Yes,
session.
okay, you're right.
Law Director, is there any particular time that sounds good? Maybe 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Does that sound okay for the media? 5 to 2. Okay. So we'll break temporarily here for the media, and then we will move into executive session. Thank you, everyone.